So, Playmobil, the movie. It's hard. I know that, a lot of times, with like stuff like this, you want to say it's like just like a knockoff Lego film. Especially because we've already seen like a similar film from this distributor STX Films earlier this year. They had UglyDolls, which was clearly meant to play off like the toy centric line made by the popularity of the Lego Movie. The Lego Movie exploded back in 2014, and so I guess like these other toy centric properties decided, hey, why don't we make films based on our own properties? Except there's a problem with that. Like the reason that I feel like the wrong lessons were taken from the Lego Movie. The Lego Movie worked because it realized it was being toy centric. It realized it was based on a commercial property. It realized the absurdity of trying to make a movie about Legos, and it also realized that there's some fun and there's some like essence of imagination within Lego that you can tap into and put that into a story. The Playmobil movie makes all the wrong calls. I think it just misinterprets it, saying like, hey, what if we just threw a whole bunch of genres together and just had just like a manic action adventure film, and then we'll just like force in some like some plot about like finding your sense of adventure and imagination again, just standard stuff, and then we'll just have a whole bunch of like animated manic sequences. Here's the problem with that though. Not quite revealed in the trailer is that this film actually begins in live action instead of animation with the Playmobil world. It starts off with a brother and sister. There's Marla, who's kind of like a teenager, and Charlie, a 6-year-old. The brother and sister, and Marla has decided that you know what, I've got big plans and dreams. I want to be an adventurer. I want to go explore the world. Before I go to college, I want to get a lot of life experience. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be a lot of fun. And Charlie's like, yeah, that sounds great. But then they get a knock on the door, and then they open the door, and the cops are there, and the cops say, your parents were both killed in a car crash. I'm not joking here. This really happens in the film. And then at that point, Marla basically has to take care of Charlie because the parents are out of the picture. And so Marla loses her sense of adventure and imagination, and Charlie grows up feeling lonely and isolated. And Marla's struggling to be like the adult here and try to take care of Charlie, but Charlie's just like, you're the worst, the day that mom and dad died was the same day that your sense of fun and creativity died as well. I want to remind everybody, this is a Playmobil movie. I don't know why. Somehow I thought like the Playmobil movie would be kind of like a scaled down version of the Lego Movie. Like a film that like much younger kids could enjoy. But not quite when the film begins with the murder of their parents. Which, I mean, I understand that, for a lot of these films where kids are supposed to be the heroes, they've got to get the parents out of the way. But it's like, murder? It's not murder, it's a car crash. But I mean, like, a car crash, having them die like that, is just like the cheapest way to get around that. It couldn't be that the parents were kidnapped, or the parents went off on vacation or something like that. You could do anything like that. But no, it's a car crash that has to get rid of the parents. How fun this is. Now you might be asking, well, how do they get to the Playmobil world then? Because the whole film is leading up to them, being transported into the world of Playmobil, where they kind of become the simplistic, rounded characters with kind of like the, like the Lego arms and kind of like the rigid movement in the very toy-centric plastic world. Well, they get sucked into this world by a lighthouse. A magical lighthouse. Now, why is the lighthouse magical? How does it have these powers? And how did it turn Marla into a toy version of herself, but Charlie is a Viking? These questions will not be answered within the Playmobil movie. It's magic, whatever. This is one of those films where you can tell it was written by too many people because they wanted, it's clear they didn't want to really come up with a creative way to get the parents out of the picture. They just killed them. It's clear they didn't want to come up with a clever way for this brother and sister duo to go into Playmobil world. It's just magic, whatever. And then for the rest of the film, they're basically wandering around Playmobil land, visiting all these different places of cowboys and Vikings and Roman Colosseums and stuff like that, and dinosaurs. They're just venturing around there. They team up with a food truck driver called Dell, voiced by Jim Gaffigan, and a very, very bland secret agent voiced by Daniel Radcliffe called Rex Dasher. Yeah, so you're going to have like secret agent stuff, and you'll get like some goofy humor here and there. You'll get some action sequences, but it's just bland. I mean, like there's no huge reason why all these Playmobil figures are disappearing, why they got to solve this mystery. There's no clear answer given as to why the lighthouse has these magical powers. And it's just the humor that comes forth is just so bland and poorly written. And I mean, I could kind of understand, if it was just for kids on that level, like just making these kind of like tiresome jokes. Like there's some really awful dialogue here. Like at one point, the villain has a whole bunch of like Playmobil prisoners, and one of the prisoners says like, you know what, I'm your worst nightmare. And the villain says, you're a piñata filled with bees? That's a bit reaching, This film, it's also, it is so boring for not really settling for not really settling much of a focus on a central theme. It feels like, the theme is about just recapturing your sense of adventure and imagination, but like only to like a lip service degree where it's not really focused on much at all. It merges a whole bunch of styles together, but they're not all that playful. Like at one point, they venture to a land of like of fairies, and nothing is done with it. Nothing. They don't make any fun commentary on it. They don't have any magical or whimsical elements to explore with it. It's just there. It just feels like they're just setting up all these great imaginative settings and different types of characters and genres, and they just kind of smush them together. They don't really find anything to connect them. They just kind of just smash it all together into like this weird mutant of a film that never really comes off as anything more than a commercial product. But even as a commercial product, as a film, like even if it was going to that degree just to sell the Playmobil toys, it kind of fails on that level as well. Like I'm sorry, maybe it's been quite a long time since since I've seen like the Playmobil sets. But is there a nightclub Playmobil set that I don't know about? Has Playmobil gotten this far? Is there a very decadent, like futuristic, utopian type setting that's also within Playmobil where they visit in the film? Is that a set as well? Somehow I don't remember that. I mean, it's been a while. I mean, I grew up playing with some of like the Playmobil stuff, which is all right. It was fun. It was no Lego thing, But I mean, if it doesn't really have like, because like Playmobil, I've never seen as like, they've been around for a long time, but I've never really placed them that high. I always kind of saw them as like, like the, like a version of Lego that was for the slightly younger crowd. I always kind of saw it that way. So maybe that's why I was thinking this film would be, would be perfect for like for a much younger audience. Obviously that's the core demographic here. But it feels like they kind of left that behind. Because I was looking up some stuff with some of the people who worked on this film, and they said that, they felt like kids because they were just like taking all these different genres and from films they loved growing up and just smushed them together. And one of like their motifs of the film was that, the only important rules are the ones you make yourselves. And I can't help but feel this film kind of could have benefited from some rules, from some grounding here. Not a lot, just maybe an explanation. Doesn't even have to be an elaborate one about why the lighthouse can zap people into Playmobil world or stuff like that. These are things that these are very small things you should be thinking about within your film so that I'm not questioning them. You could just glaze over with something very small, like, oh, the lighthouse is imbued with, Playmobil power or something like that, or a wizard cursed it or something like that. That's kind of a lame bit from Cool World, but still, it's something. But the film doesn't really bother to explore that. It doesn't really bother to explore too much of these characters past just, a standard action adventure formula with like very, very forgettable dialogue and action sequences that never really come off that much fun. And it just aggravates you because, like, this film, it's under 2 hours, but I could swear it felt longer just because it slogs through so much of this stuff, and it was really aggravating me. Like, I was starting to get really angry at this film. It's like, why do I want to do this? Why do I want to get angry at the Playmobil film? This film should be... I kind of feel this film should be for younger kids. It shouldn't make me angry. I should be able to look at it and say, I might not like this, but I could see some kids liking this. I saw this at like a theater on a Friday morning, and there weren't any kids there, so I can't really gauge that. But apparently, according to the box office, not many people saw it either. Not many kids. So I don't know. Like, I don't want to bang on this film. It's no fun to to hammer on like a kid's film, because just like, because I want this film to work. I want this film to to have the sense of fun play, the same fun that I had with like the Lego Movie, that touches on some fun themes, that has some interesting characters, and that's self-aware enough that adults can still enjoy this film. There's nothing in here that an adult is going to enjoy. Will kids enjoy it? Maybe on a very, very slow maybe on a very on like a snow day, or on a very artificial surface level, they might enjoy it. It's just a mild distraction, possibly. This is a guess on my part because, again, no kids in the theater, so I couldn't really gauge that. But this film just aggravated me. Especially, considering that, STX Films also released, like, UglyDolls, which had similar problems. It didn't bother to answer these very small questions that I feel should be answered. Like, UglyDolls didn't anger me as much, only because I thought it had more potential. It had a better theme to it. Playmobil doesn't really have much of a theme. It doesn't really have much it's saying. It's just a bunch of colorful imagery that's slammed together with very forgettable and generic and bland dialogue. It is just so... It's just so bland. And I mean, even like within I will say this, probably the best thing about the film is the animation. The animation, I will give them credit for. It does look slick. It does look smooth. It does have some great lighting here and there. I kind of like the way it's designed, but it also kind of like breaks with what you would expect to, because like Playmobil looks fairly rigid, and I love how like the Lego Movie kind of played with this aspect of the fact that the dolls were also like stuck in position and could barely move, that it kind of became a joke about how rigid they were. So I thought, well, Playmobil could maybe do that, and they kind of do it, but then forget about it, and then just like by like the last act of the film, everyone's just has like perfectly fluid movements where they kind of like just kind of break their designs, which I guess from an animation standpoint looks good, but it kind of breaks with any sense of style that the film might have had. But then again, it's forcing all these different genres together where it kind of feels like the style is mostly lost in between, just shoving as much as they can into this film without really saying much of anything. I mean, there's some music here, but I honestly can't remember any of the songs. I saw this film a week ago, and it's already like evaporating from my memory. But I just there's nothing in this film that, I mean, aside from like the animation, there's nothing in this film that's really making me want to say like, okay, it's not for me, but I think kids might like it. I don't even know if kids will like this. I can only guess, but for myself, I know this film just aggravated me. And I hate to say that about the Playmobil film, because I hate to say that about kids films in general. But that's the sad truth of the matter. So, Playmobil, the movie, 1 out of 5 stars.